Hello, hello, hello. I'm Paula Alphonse from PA Plus Consulting, and you are back on Getting Real with Paula. And tonight we will explore tips and tools to help parents better manage their current reality at home. And some of the questions that come to mind, at least for me, is how can we coexist and maintain some level of harmony within our homes? Also, while we're still at home, could there be things or tips, or could we even try to teach our kids some real life skills or even build their resilience? So, with my guest tonight, we will explore those elements. Sabrina Jafralie will help us stretch our thinking as to what are some of the different ways to make things easier for parents and kids alike. So, Sabrina, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do, and how long you've been in this field, and what's your reality currently. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Hi, Paula. Bonjour à tout le monde. Thank you for having me this evening. So I'm Dr. Sabrina Jafralie. First and foremost, I'm a high school teacher of 20 years coming this September. I also lecture at McGill University, and I do education consultancy. My reality for 2020, well, it started off well with my birthday in January, but now it seems like I'll be in my house for another year. So we'll see what happens, but it's good. I definitely miss my students, seeing them physically, but every day our safety is important. So the reality is now, how do I continue to have a good relationship with my students, help them with their learning while maintaining and navigating this pandemic?
Okay. Thank you. Right now, it feels as though it's been a year, but it's only been 2 months that
Yeah.
we're been under confinement. So the question for me is, are there some tips and tools that you can share in terms of what can we do to assist with the homework? Some in Quebec City, not Quebec, in Quebec, not Quebec City, but part of Quebec City,
Mm-hmm.
we have started reintegrating kids into schools.
Right.
But even with that realities, considering everything that is meant for parents to do right now, what are some of the tips and tools you can provide?
Well, first and foremost, before we even get into the tips and tools, I think we need to think about the different scenarios that each family is in. So I think
Mhm,
that's
mhm,
first we have to take stock of that. There are people who are probably in two-parent homes who may have multiple devices. There may be people who are in single-parent homes with one device. There may be people in parents at home with multiple children and a limited amount of devices. So I think we have to acknowledge that everyone is in a situation that's different and everyone's trying to do their
mhm,
best in that scenario. So that's first and foremost, because it's really important to acknowledge that things are not equitable at this time in terms of learning, and
mhm,
parents are really trying to do their best. So I first want to start with, if you're in an ideal situation, because some of us are in that privileged situation where you have multiple devices and that you can help your children, I think it's really important to set a structure for the day, because there is such thing as technological fatigue where you're just on the computer way too much. I noticed that
mhm,
I've relied on my glasses a lot more now because I'm on the screen longer than I was in the past 2 months ago. But let's say you're that parent that's in the home with one child or one parent is working and one parent isn't. Those are different stressors. And I think you need to consider, how do we build a schedule
mhm,
around keeping some sort of activity, keeping active, keep learning, and learning how to learn in different ways. That's really important as well. Academia learning is important, but hands-on learning is equally as important. There are things you can do as a family that don't require technology. So I think the number one point that I can give to parents in different scenarios is that diversity, structure, and scheduling is really important at this time. Not only is scheduling important for parents, but it's also important for the child to maintain the last elements of normalcy that we have left for 2020, Paula,
mhm.
and a structure and normalcy are really, really important.
Okay, when you're mentioning structure,
Mm-hmm.
can you give me an example of what structure could look like? Let's
Right.
just say I'm a parent. I wake up and my kids are, some of them are awake, some
Hmm.
of them are not. I want to get myself going, but I have to figure out what I'm doing with them. So, what does
Yeah.
it look like?
Okay. So first, what it has to look like depends. I think first and foremost, what it looks like is that you have to take stock of your day. Take a moment, observe your day. What I mean by observe your day is, what time are your children getting up? Are you letting them sleep in a little bit later? Are you still working? What are the variables that are factoring into the creation of the day? Is your child super active? Are they better in the morning? Are they better at night? How much technology do you want to give them? How much TV you want to watch? Things like that. Take some time to really sit down and look at your day. I'm in a home where I had to look at my day. I'm used to getting up at a certain time, going to work, doing this, being busy. And now I'm in a situation where my day was a little bit too open. So I had to think I needed some structure. So I took some time, I observed. I like to work out. I like to have my meals ready. I like to give myself a little bit of time off. So I think you have to find the structure has to come as an organic manner. It has to be
Mhm.
what's good for your family. What's the structure for Paula? What's the structure for Sabrina? That's first and foremost. You have to really spend some time and get to know you and your child and your learning styles vis-a-vis each other, because essentially you're spending more time with your child than you did before. And that can be stressful, it can be great, but it's definitely different. So I think that's my first tip. Take a day to observe you and your child and your habits and what happens. And then take note. Do I do this at this time? Does my kid respond better to structure? Because there's a little secret that we know as teachers. All kids love structure. They just don't want to admit it. So we know that as teachers. So that's the first advice I would give is definitely take time to observe how your day works, how long it takes things to get done, and then start incorporating some time to do things. Because again, we don't know if you're the parent with a child who may have challenges, whether it's learning challenges or challenges physically or mentally, we don't know. So your day will look different. But take some time to look and also create diversity in your schedule. Don't do the same thing all the time. Kids
Mhm.
love routine, but they love changes within routine. And we and our brain need changes in routine. Like you said,
Mhm.
it feels like a year, but essentially it's only been 2 months because we're
Mhm.
home all the time.
Yeah.
So our world is the
Yeah.
same. It's the same walls every day.
Mhm.
So my first piece of advice, just to reinforce it, is take the time to look at you and your children and how you work together, and then start making a schedule.
If I take to my own reality, because now all my kids are back in the household
Hmm.
since the beginning of the confinement, and we have different schedule. And
Right.
what I've noticed for me, I like getting up early, get my day going, and which would mean that I get up maybe around 5 or 6, start working, get a bulk of my work moving forward, so that when the others get up around maybe 10, 11, or even noon, then it's you can interact with them, have a bit of a sense of, okay, we're in the same space. How are you doing? What are your plans for the day? And then move on to something else. What I'm
Hmm.
hearing from what you're saying is that regardless of my kid's age, I should try and figure out what works for our rhythm. So I could decide if I have to work. I could work early morning while my children are sleeping in. Then they get up and I start maybe breakfast. So I give them what it is that they need. And
Right.
then I can schedule different activities or moments in the day for them to do things, but don't keep it too strict so that the people or the
Exactly.
children don't feel as though I'm confined. I know quite a few parents are worried about the fact that the kids are not in school, so of course they're not taking in as much material in terms of education. Are there some things they can do, whether I have multiple computers or not? My preference,
Yeah.
this is me, and my kids would say the same to me, about me, should I say. I'm not one to want to leave my child on a computer all day long. And
Hmm.
even if you were to give him a book to read, you can't expect the child to read books for 5 hours. So, what are
Absolutely.
some of the things they can do?
Okay. First, I want to go back to what you were saying, where you get up early and you do your thing. I think it's really important as the adult in the house not to feel guilty and to absolutely demand time for yourself. This is
Mhm,
really important. Teachers get breaks, right? We do spend 8 to 3 and sometimes longer with our students, but we do get breaks. And like a teacher, even though you're not, you're a parent, no parent is 24 hours. You need a
mhm,
break, no matter what scenario you're in. Even if you have to hide in the bathroom for 5 minutes, you need a break. No,
mhm.
like I'm in the right now. There's
Yeah.
just two of us in the house, and I need a break. So we all need a break, and that's really important. It's good to
Mhm,
reset for you, and it's good to reset for your kids. Now, I want to take us to what your second point, which is what can we do? How do we manage and get our kids to do some sort of learning? So, number one, learning is diversity. Learning doesn't have to be from the textbook. Learning can be anything we want it to be. We learn every day, even as older people, adults, we're always learning. So, first and foremost, I want to remind parents in a funny way, we're going back to a newborn stage with our child. You know, when your child needed you 24/7, you're kind of there,
mhm,
but with some perks. So, depending on the age of the kid, you can create learning through soft skills and hard skills. So, soft skills is like when they decide they're going to get up at this time and they're responsible for it. So you leave that onus on them depending on their age.
mhm,
Now, this would probably be an upper age, maybe around 8 and up or 9 and up, where they get to decide what time they're getting up. And maybe they have some independent learning. You make the plan with them. Okay, so what do we have to do? What do we want to cover today? You said, Paula, maybe you want to make breakfast for your family. Well, what can the child do to help
mhm,
participate that in that learning? That's also learning. If I have a 5-year-old, my daughter's 8, if she can bring the milk and not spill it, then great. You've learned how to be careful with products that are in the fridge. Teach them about expiration dates and why we have expiration dates on products. Talk about eggs and why there's a yellow part and a clear part. That's learning. So
mhm,
make them become responsible for what they're taking in. It's also an opportunity for older kids to design their education. There's a number one complaint we hear in teaching all the time. Oh, I don't want to do this. This is not what I'm interested in. Well, it's time to put your money where your mouth is. You're not
mhm,
interested in something, but you've been given an opportunity through this pandemic to explore things that you are interested in. I have one student who always writes to me about their cooking and they send pictures to me. That's amazing. One thing
mhm,
that's actually a bit exciting about this pandemic is that we don't know what kind of amazing human beings as our students are going to come out of this. So as a
mhm,
parent, just think about nurturing their ingenuity. You know, if they want to paint or if they want to learn some math, if they want to go back to basics, if they have a younger sibling, you have an opportunity to say, why don't you teach your younger sibling some subtraction or addition? There's many
mhm,
opportunities of learning. So it can be anything from making a schedule together, having a task of the day, reading a book and then coming to tell you about it, teaching a sibling. If you don't want to put your kids in front of the computer or the TV all day long, I mean, the optometrists are going to be very happy when we come out of this pandemic. All of our eyes are going to be shot. But when before that, have them tell you what's happening in the story if they are watching a show. It's about accountability, learning for them, learning for yourself. There can be a half an hour quiet time. Teach your kids
mhm,
about quiet time. Have 5 minutes a day where everybody's absolutely silent in the house, including you. Train them to do that. There's
mhm.
many research studies out there that talk about that moment of solitude, that moment of quietness, not busy.
Yeah.
It reduces anxiety. So again, depending on the age of your group, you are back in the newborn stage. We're in the newborn stage of pandemic, learning pandemic, being in a pandemic setting. But there's a lot of things that blossom. It reminds me of when you see plants blossom through the cracks of cement.
Yeah.
We have this opportunity. So I've learned how to bake. It hasn't been going very successful with the bread, but I'm still learning because I've never touched active yeast before. So I actually messaged my students and I'm like, has anyone baked bread before? And they come on, they're like, okay, miss, you can do this. So, you know, there's a lot of things that we can do, a lot of hands-on practical learning we can do.
We have a question where Val is mentioning that she's trying to teach her son how to prioritize his task, and that seems to be a big issue. So any tips on that?
Val, you know what? I think, yeah, this is the thing. Sometimes they just want to play on the game or they just want to do what they want to do. I think you have to talk them through the consequences. Everyone has a choice. If you want to do this, you can do this. However, there's choices that come with it. So if they want to play the video game all day and then you add a consequence to it, like, okay, you can play this game all day long, but then you can't play it for another 2 days. Or you can play it for a certain amount of time and get it every day. Right? So you have to help them walk through that decision, because if you apply the consequence and don't let them participate or have choice in it or the illusion of a choice, that's when you tend to lose them. Or I say to them, okay, if you are going to play the game, then you have to walk me through your strategy when you're going to play the game. Right? It depends on what they're prioritizing. It can be a reward. It could be a learning moment. Like I said, I ask the kids, can you teach me how to use yeast? And they think it's really funny, but they're prioritizing to spend time because they also know that they get to have some sociability time. So find out what is he prioritizing? What do you realize that it keeps repeating? What's coming up for him? And ask him, okay, we have 2 choices. Depends on his age, of course, what he's into, but find out, are you accepting this choice? And the hardest thing to do as parents is following through with a consequence. But we also know in teaching world, don't say something that you can't do. It's a number 1 teaching rule. Don't make a threat you cannot follow through on. So if I tell the kids, I'm going to stay here till 6 o'clock because I teach high school, they don't believe me until I tell them I live across the street. And then they're like, okay, we're going to do the work. It's a choice. So I would discuss with him the consequences, why he likes it, and maybe try. So 2 tips. Try to turn it into something educational and also talk to him about the choices that he's making. Let me know how it goes.
Thank you. Thank you. I really like that. I remember with my kids when they were younger, there was always that conversation about action consequence. So it's part to me of the life skills because that helps them not only prioritize, but make decision as to what are the better options, which is something they're going to have to do for the rest of their journey. So whether we're there or not. So the sooner we start, the more likelihood that they'll get to those moments and be more comfortable with making those decisions. The idea is we might have those kids in our household for a certain amount of time, but eventually they become grown up. You don't want them coming back to you every single time, should I or should not I? Because then, you know, your job's never done. So I get that.
It's never done.
So yeah, no, it could be a longer journey for some if we haven't taught them things early enough. Absolutely. If I was to ask you, in terms of key messages, you've mentioned one message that you wanted to leave with the rest of the group, with the rest of the audience. Are there other things that you want parents to live with after this segment?
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about it in 3 ways. There's a message for kids, there's a message for parents, and then there's a message for all of us. As a child, every child is different. Take the time. You're spending a lot more time with your child than you did 2 months ago. The reality is, as teachers, we spent 8 hours with them and then we sent them back. So You have a new dynamic. That new dynamic takes time to get used to, because at some point, you remember, we were closing, we didn't know if we were opening, there was this uncertainty. Now we're in a situation where, for better or for worse, whether you're sending your kid back or not, they're home more than they were. So child diversity, every child is different. They act different, they learn different. So that child diversity is really important to acknowledge. And especially if you're in a home with multiple children, they're all different.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of energy to deal with their differences. Can you imagine, as a teacher, I deal with 30 kids every 70 minutes for 5 days a week. So it's a lot. But one of the things that I realize about kids is that once you find the one thing that sets them apart from others and you tune into it, you've captivated them and you're okay. So it's okay. You love your child. You may not like them every day. That's okay, because it's life. We have friends that we don't like every day, right? We have parents we don't like every day. That's okay. Go hide in the bathroom. 2, my message for parents is, you need a break. Set your boundaries. Set the time that you need. You're only as good as rested as you are. My mom used to tell me all the time, she still tells me to this day, because I'm a bit of a workaholic, you can't work if you're dead. Rest. Take the time you need, right? Try to include independent activities. You don't want to create this unhealthy interdependence between you and your child, because they feel the anxiety that you exhibit verbally and non-verbally. So take your time, take a break. I know with younger children, it's a little bit harder. And that way you have to find different mechanisms, right? Maybe you do need to put Peppa Pig on for a half an hour just to close your eyes. Maybe you do need to tell them there's a bedtime. Maybe you do need to teach them to read to their younger siblings. It's okay in a 24-hour period to have time that is strictly for you. Do not feel guilty about it, and fight hard to get it, because your sanity is their sanity. So you think about it. Every time you take a break for yourself and you're recharging, you're actually recharging for yourself to be a better parent for them. So do not feel any guilt about this at all. I cannot tell you how many times as a teacher I have hid from kids, simply because my brain is going to explode. You know, I deal with 613 students a year, 14 classes every 2 weeks. I need a break. And thirdly, you're doing the best you can right now with the tools and situations that you're in. This is almost like the blind leading the blind. You have to take the information you know, and don't overload or consume information, because there's so many new things coming up every day, Paula, that we don't know what's fake, what's real, what's not. No, listen, you know what's best for your child. You know what's best for you. Take what the government's saying, take what you know about your child, take what you know about yourself, and create the structure that's your family. For the Jafralies, for the Alphonses, for whoever. Do that. We're not cookie cutters. We're not the same. What makes us the greatest is that we're different. So you're doing the best you can. Right now, you should be patting yourself on the shoulder for surviving, right? It's exactly. We don't know how long we're going to be in this, and variety is especially important. So maybe this structure works this month. Summer's coming. Time to change it up. What are we going to do? Build a bike, find a bike, help, volunteer, make messages. You have to switch it up. So those are my 3 key points. Get to know your kid, find time for yourself, because remember, when you're good, your kid is good, and give yourself a pat on the shoulder, because essentially you're living through a time that is uncharted, has never happened to this up into the 21st century, and you're here, and your child is alive and happy and loves you. And that's the greatest education you can give them right now.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's so true that for me, I see this uninterrupted time as a great opportunity for us to redefine the rules of engagements with our families. And that's both the kids, the siblings, as well as the parents. And for all of you out there, because I can see we're running to the half hour, and I want you to remember that we all know you're doing your best to show up in your respective realities. So, as per the previous segment, I want to remind you, take care of yourself. As Sabrina has mentioned, take time to recharge your own batteries. Go for a walk, sometime with a kid, sometime all myself, because I need that time away. Be kind to yourself, but also be kind to others, because we have no sense of what they themselves are going through. What could
Mhm.
not be a stress for you could be a stress for someone else. And then the last one I would say is pay it forward. Whichever
Yeah.
way you can, find something kind to do for someone else, because who knows, you might be that light in someone's day that they were thinking this is the pit. Somebody as well go back to bed. So be
Yeah.
generous with your life, else be generous with your laughter, and if possible, give someone a call. Maybe it's not that person you wanted to spend 3 hours on the phone with, but give them a call, give them a 10 or 15 minutes, and see whether you can help someone else. And again, I will say thank you for choosing to be with
Oh,
us
thank you for
today.
having me. Thank you for having me. It's a break. I'm doing something different. It's a
Oh, it's a
variety.
break for you. It's in the evening. You've worked all day, but thank you.
I have, but it's
So
okay.
it's okay. We work on it. We're trying to find our
Absolutely.
boundaries and figure out
And you
this
gave me
new
a
path.
reason to actually put makeup on. So,
Yeah, for all the men out there, we don't look like that every day when we're home. Is that it? Yeah. Okay.
well, I mean, I look like
So
this
thank
every day, but today I just added some lipstick, right? So,
Oh, I made it extra special. Thank
yeah,
you.
you're welcome.
So till next time,
Yeah.
we're looking forward to have you and continue those conversation with Getting Real with Paula. So have a
Thank you
great
for having
week, everyone.
and pat yourself
Bye
on the
bye.
shoulder.